Coffee with Kat. I hope you guys all have your coffee with you. And I'm super excited because this darling lady that is on Coffee with Kat, her name is Ashley Snowball, and I've met her over this past year, and she has an amazing, amazing story. So Ashley, go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Kathy, and thank you for everyone tuning in. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast or any sort of webinar. I've been taking some time for me. So again, my name is Ashley Snowball. I'm a psyche resilience specialist and transformative speaker, as well as a conscious hip hop poet and rap artist. And yeah, I don't even know where to begin.
Well, you have an amazing story, and today you want to talk about metamorphosis. I hope I said that right. And yeah, and so tell us what you mean by you wanting to talk about metamorphosis. That's a mouthful, by the way. It's a mouthful.
It is. I was actually like, how do I spell this? It's been so long. And then I was like, metamorphosis. And I was like, no, it's metamorphosis. So I totally am on the same wave. Yeah. So the reason I really wanted to have a conversation around metamorphosis is because I feel that's been my year, is really the process of metamorphosis is, going from an immature state or immature form to an adult form, changing into something completely different. If you think of a caterpillar, it's, when it goes into that cocoon, that's the metamorphosis, and that it completely self-destructs and like goes down to a goo and rebuilds itself into something completely different, which is the butterfly. And it has to go through this struggle of getting out of this cocoon in order to build its strength. And if somebody were to open it up, it actually would die. So it needs that struggle to become the beautiful butterfly that it is. And I feel like that's so symbolic to life, is that all of our challenges, all of our struggles really truly make us and shape us into the people that we become. And, when we can utilize that for the challenges that we go through and look at it and use it to propel us forward rather than hold us back, it can be really a profound journey. And this last year, especially being a part of TIR, I find any sort of development program such as this, when you're having to put a magnifying glass to your life, it's gonna disrupt. And maybe not for everybody, but for most of us it will, because it's like we're truly taking a deeper look into our behaviors and our patterns and what's working and what's not working, in order to, not to look at all these things to make ourselves wrong, but to look at them in order to, how can I shift something so that I can get to where I really want to be, right? And that's, my journey in this last year has been a bomb blowing up in every area. And I, at one point, really connected to metamorphosis and the caterpillar really destructing. Like I remember being in my bed for, it was midsummer, and I didn't want to get out of bed for a couple weeks because I was just going through so much. And it took a point where I just broke down and really needed to surrender. And it wasn't until I surrendered that things started to change. So that's
interesting. That's and for those people that are listening, sorry about that, I have got a little bit of a cold. So those people that are listening, when Ashley says TIR, it is Thinking into Results by Bob Proctor. That is actually what put me on my path of being here as well. And that's where I've met Ashley. And she is amazing. But the thing that I love what you say is, like, when it turns to goo, it's goo. Because, you know, I think for all of us that have gone through the whole, whether it's in TIR or a different self-improvement program, and you have to do that deep self inner child work, whatever you want to call it, you just have to look at yourself and decide if you like where you're at, and if you don't like where you're at, you've got to start doing all of that work. And it's hard. It is hard. And it's basically you turn yourself into goo. Yeah. So there you go.
It is. It's such hard work. And I find it's just a journey that doesn't end, right? And that can be intimidating, and, you know, where a lot of people tend to avoid it, because it is, when you start the journey, you don't stop, right? And it's not about like, you know, you're not always stuck in the mud. You're not always in these dark places when you're, you know, putting that light on yourself to see what you need to change. There's different layers and levels, and sometimes it's even just the same lessons. You can be like, I thought I learned this already, but it's just a deeper level to it. And, you know, I've been on this journey for, you know, quite a long time, and I always get, well, if it's working, why are you still, you know, dealing with these problems? It's like, because it is working. And if you really look at it, like, I am not the same person I was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, right? And it's like, I found like this part of my journey, these last few months, I felt my whole life rewind. And I have had one other time where my whole life rewinded, and I mean that in the sense of like brought back to similar environments or similar decisions, and faced with having to make the same choice or choosing differently or shifting my perspective as I'm in that environment again. And, you know, this time around, like, you know, I when I got to this place of surrender, I decided like I couldn't choose a place to think. And we were talking about this just before we jumped on. It's like I was at a point where everything in my life was just up in the air, and I had no control, and I was trying to shift with all these changes and just run with it and go with it. And I just kept coming up against this resistance and against myself. And I wasn't able to move through anything until I really overcame these self-worth images that I have of myself, the value that I see and attach to myself. And until I started to shift that, I couldn't step into the next level of my career, of my relationships, of my business, of, you know, financially. And so I decided to, okay, well, what can I do? And I decided not to think about anything. It's like when you step away from the problem and stop trying to find a solution, the solution is just going to come. And so that's what I did. And I started to focus just on making some money. And it went back to an industry that I, you know, didn't want to necessarily be in, you know, but it was what I needed to do in order to get myself forward and to pick myself back up. And so focusing on that one thing stepped me away from trying to figure out the solution to all my problems, and just focus on one solution, which was just getting some money under my belt. And then the rest would figure itself out. But being in the environment that I was in was bringing up old patterns, was bringing up, you know, it wasn't necessarily the same environment, but it was a similar energy and a similar type of people. And, you know, being in that space, at first, it triggered a lot. But then as time has been going on, I'm noticing gifts within myself that I can actually utilize going forward in my business and in other areas of my life. And it's actually providing me so much healing when it comes to the type of people that I'm around, because it's also part of me, because it's like part of me has been running away from my past, but it's actually bringing me back to face my past and to see that just because I lived a certain way, or just because people live a certain way, doesn't mean that they're bad or that it's all wrong. It's like there's still beauty there, and there's still a lot of healing there. It's like, how can I bring my light back to those dark places? And so it had me start to see a side of myself that actually provided me a lot of healing in what I was actually dealing with before being put back in that environment, or before, the blow up. It's like all that self-confidence, all that, self-esteem issues that I was struggling with. This is actually, and I didn't correlate it until things started to become more clear. But at first you don't always recognize it, right? It's like until you step outside of the picture frame, then you can actually see the picture. But when you're in the picture, you don't actually always see it. So it's been quite a journey.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it's Les Brown. I believe it's Les that says you can't see the picture when you're in the box, or something like that. Same concept of what you're just saying. So do you have a book that you have written?
I'm actually in the process of writing my book. So that was another thing, was like, okay, if I have this time to just make some money, I can focus on writing my book. And I was actually blessed with an opportunity to be guided by some incredible publishers and ghostwriters who have been teaching me how to actually write my book and structure it in a way that is going to be delivered powerfully. So, that's with Eli Gonzalez and Carla Keebler, and as well Lisa. They've been incredible. There's a team of the 4 of them, I believe, and they've just been incredible for my journey. So I'm in the process. That's actually a big part of why I'm going away. It's a portion of that is to take that time to really isolate and focus on just my book. So that's
So when when Ashley says she's going away, she's not like going away. She's going to the Dominican Republic, and she is actually going to be starting to host retreats. So I'm putting it out there, Ashley, and so yes, I'm super excited. If you want to get in contact with Ashley to go down to the Dominican Republic for any kind of retreats, let me know. I can get you in contact with her. I'm super excited about it. I can't go on your first one though, because I'm going to be in Hawaii during that time.
What?
Yeah, we're going on a backpacking trip in Hawaii.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. And then, so you've been doing your, not necessarily coaching, but you do coaching, you teach, you do public speaking, you're a certified, oh gosh, I forgot what kind of certificate. I know you're a certified life coach, but you also have got your speaking. What did you go? Toastmasters. You went through Toastmasters, didn't you? Yeah. So, which is awesome. What catapulted you to the journey to become a life coach and to do all the things that you are doing right now? And before you answer that question, when Ashley says that she has gone back to make some money, she is waitressing, which, you know what, I love waitressing. I absolutely love it. And I love the fact that you get instant cash. I mean, that's so helpful. And so that is what she's going back to. But so to go back and answer the question that I just asked, what catapulted you to this?
Yeah, so what a journey, what a loaded question. So I have been coaching for the last 2 years, and it really started with my own journey. And back in 2016, I had a near-death experience, which was the other rewind that I experienced. I, walked a pretty dark life for quite some time. And when I say dark, it's, path of, just no confidence, finding validation through men, through sex, through, that connection, that intimate connection, not knowing my value, not believing in myself, not seeing my worth. And that really threw me into a whirlwind, especially through high school. You know, kids are horrible. They are the worst.
Oh,
And, you know, I find those years are really probably the worst years of our life, I would say, you know,
yeah.
the hardest years of not understanding yourself, trying to figure yourself out. And I tried to mold myself to fit in rather than just be who I was, because I didn't feel accepted. I didn't feel like I was good enough. I, you know, was rejected a lot, and, you know, by some people that are very, you know, close to me and that should be a leading example. I felt rejected by. And, you know, through that, I sought after, like I said, different, like sex to fill that void, drugs, alcohol, shopping, different things I found fulfillment in, but it was a temporary fulfillment. It was a temporary happiness. And it wasn't until I got to a pretty low point, and, you know, I ended up walking a path of escorting myself, putting myself out there in a way that was not good, but it just reflected how I saw myself, how I felt about myself. And even when I removed myself from that situation, I ended up in very similar environments because nothing internally changed. I just put myself in a different place. And so all the same types of people I began attracting. And it wasn't until my near death experience that really shook me and woke me up and made me realize, like, I have more control over my life. And it's because I do not value myself, nor do I love myself, nor do I see any good in myself. And that is why I'm continuing to reflect and attract people that are going to treat me the ways that are going to validate those feelings I have. And as I started to understand my mind and how my behaviors were actually creating my reality and my day-to-day happiness or dissatisfaction and depression, I wasn't able to actually change anything. And so the more that I understood myself, the more that I understood my emotions and why I'm reacting certain ways or behaving, you know, as I started to see that awareness, I was able to start shifting things. And the more that I started, you know, evolving, and it was really my accident that catapulted me into this change, because I literally was out of work, out of like, I couldn't even utilize my body. I had to rehabilitate everything. And it wasn't my body that just needed to be rehabilitated. It was my mind and my heart. And so that drive alone to not stay where I was and to, you know, have my whole world blow up, I knew that I needed to just go, and I ran for the hills. I ran and climbed that mountain as best as I could. And it was like I was on this high, which allowed me to keep pushing forward. And truly just, I had this goal of becoming something completely different than what I was and where I was. And really during that, I discovered that I don't need to actually become anything. I need to just be myself. And that was, I think, my greatest lesson. And so through my transformation, my best friend, Sash, which is why we started a business together, she was also going through her own journey, and we were going through that together. And as much as we weren't side by side going through it, when I had my accident, she had her daughter, within a week apart of each other. And so we were still doing it on our own, but we had each other to inspire each other and keep going. And it was really helped us push each other along. It's like one would rise, the other one would rise to that, the other one would rise, the other one would rise to that. And we just kept going and going and going. And, you know, eventually it got to a point where we just realized, like, there was so many people out there that were inspired and wanting to know how we changed our lives. And so that's when we really, you know, sat down and we took the knowledge business blueprint with Dean Graciosi and Tony Robbins. and that helped us develop our masterminds. And it's like, they don't tell you what to create, they just teach you a structure of how to extract your gifts, your superpowers, and put it into a format that is powerful and that people are going to be captivated by and really transform through. So that was our start, and we just ran with it. And we had an amazing community that has been supportive from the beginning to even still, as we've been on a bit of a back burner, taking a break in our own evolution this year. They've still been there for us and supporting us along our journey. So that's really what got us into our coaching. And that's how I ended up on that journey into coaching. You know, it was quite a powerful 2 years, quite a rocky 2 years, launching right as COVID started. But we've been, you know, shifting and trying to go with things, and then also coming back to, okay, it's, you know, we can give, but now we got to come back and connect into ourselves. And that's where this year has really been our evolution, in order for us to take the next step in our business. And so the reason I stepped back into waitressing was because it's mindless, and I love waitressing too. Like, I get to see the nurturer in me, the one that loves to just take care of a room, like create a space for people, you know, especially as a bartender, waitress, we know that people like to just share their problems. And so, you know, I get to really see those sides of me that I really hindered in my business, or didn't fully allow myself to stand in. And even just like, it's allowing me to bring out my self-expression and my fashion in a whole new way, because I don't have anyone to dress up for other than, you know, going to work right now. You know, in fact, and COVID really had us stay inside a lot of the time. So I'm even evolving in my expression through this. And so I'm noticing that even though I'm not where I want to be, I'm exactly where I need to be. And that is the most important part I find in surrender, is just trusting that we don't need to know why things are happening the way that they are, but we just have to trust. And, you know, it's really brought me back to a deeper connection with my faith, and trusting myself, and just the journey, right?
I love that. I love that. Now, I don't know, I didn't hear if you actually said how you had your near-death experience, because I was getting IMs. I was trying to mute it. And, but I believe you fell through the floor, right?
I did. Yeah, I was, at a point I was waitressing, but it was slow during the winter season. Things had slowed down a lot. And my boyfriend at the time was he was doing some construction with a friend, and he had asked me to come check out the site. He knows I love building things. Like, I always was. When I was a kid, I used to build stuff, climb stuff all the time. Like, you know, it's one thing I bonded with my dad over a lot of projects, and my mom was always handy as well. So I just naturally have that talent. And so he knew that I would be excited about it. And I always wanted to build schools around the world. That was my dream. And so he was telling his friend, and his friend's like, hey, just bring her, whatever. And like, so it was the three of us on this job site. And I was actually living out in the city at the time. And this site happened to be in Barrie, which was my hometown. And I was like, so excited. I'm like, I get to build a house in my city. Like, what? Like, we ended up like just the three of us. We had a couple hands here and there when we had to put up some pretty big walls, but other than that, like, it was the three of us that built this house. And so he was so happy with the work that I did that he asked me to come to this next project with him. And and then just, we were building an office and in a warehouse, and I ended up falling through a hole in the floor. And it changed my life. Like, it was like when I hit the moment I just like hit that floor, everything just went black, and I laid there to the point where I didn't even get signals to get up. Like, my body just knew It's like I just knew that I couldn't move. Yeah, and I waited till the ambulance came. Like, I was in excruciating pain. I just felt this pool of blood swarm my core. And
Wow.
I heard this voice, and I was pretty certain it was my grandfather coming through telling me everything was going to be okay. And he had passed years prior to that, but just something in me held on to those words, like, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. And I just kept telling myself that over and over and over again, to the point where the ambulance showed up and they wanted to flip me onto this board, and I was like, hell no, you are not moving me. And they're like, well, we have to. I was like, you are not touching me until you put something in me, because I am in so much pain. And like, they are not allowed to put any like drugs into your body until they get you into the ambulance, and check you out. But I was in such excruciating pain, they made an exception. And even still didn't do anything. They flipped me over. The medication had not kicked in. And yeah, that was the beginning of a year-long healing journey. And I was in the hospital for 2.5 months. And yeah, I lost everything. I had to move home with my family. I, broke up with my ex. I had no financial support. I had a WSIB case I had to fight. And just like, it was just a mess. Like, everything blew up for me in that moment. But that was a second chance for me. And that literally, as it all happened, I knew that I didn't know why it was happening, but I knew that there was a greater reason for it. And that, I was determined to completely shift my world, because I was in a really dark place. I was depressed. I was in an abusive, toxic relationship. And it wasn't one way. We were both toxic for each other, right? But at the time, it was, of course, I didn't, like, I wouldn't say I blamed him, but, I stayed in the relationship a lot longer than I wanted to, because I didn't know how to live. It was just, I was just in a really, really deep state of depression. And that accident shook something in me that created that transformation. That was my metamorphosis. I was literally like broken down into pretty much goo and had to rebuild myself, remold myself. And that's when I, got to spread my wings and fly. And, these last 6-7 years of my life have been the greatest blessing. Like, I'm in love with my life, as much as this year has been like questionable at times. It doesn't mean we don't have moments where we question our life, our worth, our journey. But at the end of the day, I live an amazing life because I've been designing it. I've been going for my dreams, and it hasn't looked pretty. And I've had a lot of backlash from people that I love, not understanding my journey. But knowing that I look back and I am nowhere near the woman I used to be is enough to just get me through another day. And sometimes I forget that and need to remind myself or be reminded. Yeah. And that's when, knowing when I need to reach out for help, or, give myself the love I need, or just shut down and sometimes numb. Sometimes it's okay as long as we're not doing it excessively, like everything in moderation. If I need to smoke a joint, or, I will.
Whatever works for you, right?
Whatever works, right?
Whatever works. But yeah, I have these that I have all over my house. It's like, and it says, I am worthy of success. I give myself permission to be successful. I am enough. And so I've got like these little, my affirmations all over. But, and you know, and sometimes I believe as women, we have a tendency to not believe our worth. And I don't know why that is. Well, actually, I do not. I think it's culture. I think it's how we're raised. And we always put everybody else in front of our needs before our own. And so I get where you're coming from. I totally understand where you're coming from. And a lot of times, because we don't see our worth, we go in that spiral of depression. We go in the spiral of anxiety. And that's actually, I have a book coming out, and it's about overcoming anxiety and depression, because that was where I was at. That's totally where I was at.
I'm
But
excited
yeah.
to hear about your book and read your journey.
Oh, it's coming out next year, 2022.
Stay tuned, everybody.
So, but the thing that I love that you just said is that you're designing your life how you want it. And there's so many people out there that think that life comes to them. And it's just this, and honestly, that's where I was at. I was thinking this was my lot in life. And, you know, I wake up, go to work, and then I come home, make dinner, do the same thing, go to bed and do the same thing. I was like, I thought that that was what my lot in life was. I didn't understand at that point in my life that I could actually design my life. And so I love that. I love the fact that you are designing your life how you want it. And the other thing that I want to say is for those people that are older, like I'm older, I'm going to be 50 next year. And
your glow and everything does not say that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Woo-woo. So, but yeah, good morning, Tia. Good morning, Shannon. But the people that are older, you can still design your life. You can be whatever age you want and design your life. And so you know what, actually with saying that, and I know we're coming close to the end of our time, but with saying that, what is the number one advice you would give females or males, it doesn't really matter, about designing their life and about becoming that goo or whatever you want to call it, because we've all done it.
Yeah, it's it really, designing your life is a blessing, and it's a gift that we all have, to the ability to do. And you know, I think the most important thing for anybody to really hold on to is knowing that when you believe in yourself, you can literally achieve anything. And it's not until you believe in yourself that you're ever truly gonna be fulfilled and happy, because you know, you have to live with yourself every day. And if you're going to take on other people's opinions of who you should be and how you should be, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be living a life based on somebody else's beliefs and opinions of you. And you know, I walked a very sad, depressed, unhappy life for so long because I didn't believe in myself. And it's so true. A lot of women don't, and men too. And I find, you know, it's really takes connecting back into who you really are. And I find if we can just sit with ourselves and be with ourselves and think back to when we were a child, what did we love? What lights us up? What used to light us up? And when you can connect with just a couple things, like even if it's like, for me, when I was a kid, I used to play in forests. I used to climb trees. I loved adventure. And that may not, it's like, okay, well, how could I take that as a career? It's like, well, you could potentially design a career around that. You know, for me, my highest value is travel. And so I know that I will never be satisfied sitting in an office every day. Like, that's just not for me. And maybe you are the type of person that is okay. It's like, you got to really connect with what works for you. What does your personality really get drawn towards? What are your strengths? Really discovering those strengths will help you find that path that lights you up every day. You want to, like, work is not just to go to work and come home and hate your life. You want to find something that you're going to enjoy doing, right? And it's finding the difference between what's a hobby and passion to be able to take on as a career. Like, there are levels to it, but I would just recommend connecting back into what truly lights you up. What are your strengths? What do you love to do? If you hate kids and you're working in education, maybe reconsider that, because they're not going to be beneficial to yourself or those children if you hate your job, right? Like, you want to think about how you're going to affect other people too in the choice you make, because if you're miserable, you're sending out that energy to other people in their day. And no, don't make yourself wrong if you are, but just connect that something's missing for you. Something is there that you still need to discover. And for me, after my accident, like, I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want to be. Like, even when I was in high school, I didn't go to college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like, I was like, yeah, I could be a mechanic. That would be cool. I know I'd be good at it, but that's not going to excite me every day. Yeah, I could, be a travel agent or a flight attendant, but that's not gonna, like, that I'm gonna get bored of it easily. And so I never went to school because I just didn't want to put money into not knowing what I wanted to do. And so I decided to start traveling. I started to explore. When I had my accident, I started with a styrofoam project. And I was like, I'm gonna eliminate styrofoam. And I got tired of it and bored of it. It's like, okay, no, clearly that's not my passion. So it's like, you got to try some things and see what sticks, right? You can try 10, 20, 30, 1,000 things, and you might not like any of them or want to pursue them any more than the time being, but you're eventually going to find something that you love and that you want to follow. So don't be afraid to just try something and not feel like, knowing that you might not commit to it. I think that scares off a lot of us, is like feeling like we have to commit to something if we choose it, or, just, being scared of failure or rejection. So you have to start somewhere, right? Like, Michael Jordan didn't become the best basketball player by, wishing he was good at basketball. He started somewhere. Maybe he has a natural gift at it, but he started somewhere. He wasn't just extremely great one day. It took a lot of practice, a lot of training. So I would really just connect back to your truth, connect back to what lights you up, your natural strengths, your natural talents, and play around with them, explore them, try them out. Maybe you realize one you don't want as a career. Maybe it's just a hobby. Maybe there's something that you wouldn't have expected to be your career. But we have to start somewhere. So I don't know if that helps at all.
No, I think that's awesome. It's the tidbits I got was design your life, see what sticks, and start somewhere. And those are great advice. I'm writing those down, and because those are it's great advice to live by, honestly. Absolutely. So anybody out there that has any questions for Ashley, do pop it in the chat or let me know, and I will connect you with Ashley. And so I'm super excited.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for your book. And I do have one more thought that just came up.
Okay.
Follow your heart. Like, for me, I'm about to take a big move. It's at least a 6-month journey, but seeing where it takes me. But I had no idea how it was going to happen when I made this decision, but all the money, the tools, the people, the connections, everything has shown up for me the moment I made the decision that this is what I wanted. And I think that's the most important part, is to remember you don't need to know how something is going to happen. But if it pulls you, if your heart is screaming, go, take this jump, take this leap, take that course, go on that trip, go on that date, do it. You don't need to know how. And just trust that it's going to unfold. Even if it doesn't look like what you had hoped or expected, it's going to happen the way it's supposed to happen.
It's a great way to end this episode.